Oh my gosh, we've all been there, haven't we? Tubes of paint, jars of paint, drying in the tube. Y'all, I've been painting over 20 years. And I am an ADHD hot mess in the studio most days. But with the cost of acrylic pigments and supplies, I literally had to have a serious talk with myself about some tips and tools that I could utilize to protect my investment of how much money I was spending on paint. Now, I paint professionally. I have probably over 100 tubes of pigment all over the studio. I also teach, so I have students coming in. I've got a lot of tubes of paint. And lately I've been noticing, because I travel or just because of the heat, some of these tubes have been drying in the jar. This jar right here, completely dehydrated. It's now a really pretty paperweight. Yeah. But also tubes like this, completely dried. And that, when you're spending 15 to 20 something dollars on a tube of paint, that I can do better. We can do better. So I've been thinking about some strategies to fix this part of my studio practice, and I've been implementing a few, and they've been making a difference. One is having a crimping tool. Now, this is a pretty reasonably priced crimping tool. This one is by Product Club. I have a really heavy duty fancy one. You don't have to have that one because it's so expensive. But just having a crimping tool for tubes like this to keep air out of that part of the tube that's empty, that makes a big difference. It actually does. Not allowing your tubes to go through a heat or a cold. And what I mean by that is, I live in Mobile, Alabama, and I'm typically taking buckets of paint and putting them in the car. And because it's so hot here, they'll go through a heat. And same thing, I'll forget about them, or I'll just get busy and I don't unload the car if it goes through a cold, like if it freezes. Severe temperature changes can completely wreck acrylic tube paints or jar paints. So you've got to be cognizant of, are you leaving your pigments in a hot car or a cold car, or boxes and things like that in a shed? They will completely dry on you. Another thing that I'm doing that's making probably the most difference out of everything I'm doing is petroleum jelly on the lid. So taking the lid and making the effort to wipe the lid, place petroleum jelly around it, and thread it back in. I've got to be honest. It's not something I enjoy doing because it requires me to stop and take the time to tend to things. My ADHD and creative mind, I have moved on. I'm after the next shiny thing, and I do not have a studio assistant to come in and clean up after me. So this is kind of putting my big girl panties on, per se, and really considering, am I willing to throw money in the trash moving forward because I'm too lazy to wipe a tube down? I called myself to the carpet, and it's making a big difference because I'm no longer having the issue of the caps and the tubes drying because of poor cap maintenance. Different tubes also have different issues. That tube, that cap is so tiny. This one's a little bit bigger. These are pretty easy, but still, it does not matter the manufacturer or brand. If I'm utilizing poor cap maintenance, I run the risk of my paints and pigments drying out in the tube. Petroleum jelly, wiping it off, makes so much difference. I can't stress that one enough. Let's see. Set a reminder. Oh, this is something else. Especially turning the page on 2025. I'm utilizing my phone reminders so much. So once a month, I've already pre-planned in once a month in my phone to have an audible reminder: check your paints, check your paints. it dings, it goes off, and I know it's a reminder that I need to definitely check the paints that I'm currently using, just so that I don't end up with paperweights and have to chunk them and I'm throwing stuff in the trash. And then, just the cap maintenance alone. If I have tubes that I know are at risk of feeling gummy, I'll put a couple of drops of either water or acrylic glazing fluid in those. I'll rehydrate those. And then I will put these in a Ziploc bag and seal them so that I'm attempting to protect the hydration that is left. It seems like a whole lot of work. But to be honest, it is a whole lot of work. But think about how much money we are chunking, throwing out, putting in landfills because not using, proper jar and cap maintenance. It's an issue. I am so guilty. I've been painting for 20 years. It has plagued me. I'm married to a beautiful human who is a meticulous person when it comes to work. And the way that I treated my jars and my caps drove him absolutely mad. And I get it now because I have been chunking jars of paint in the trash and so mad at myself. So I just thought I'd come on here and share a little bit about that today because I have made it a goal for 2025 to have much wiser and more professional approaches to protecting my investments and my products than I ever have before. And I thought some of you might be struggling with the same thing. Use a crimper. Pay attention to cap maintenance. Use Ziploc bags if you need to. Rehydrate your paints. And use petroleum jelly. Pause long enough. But the big thing too is set a reminder in your phone to have monthly reminders. Check your paints. Check your tubes. Check your caps. Because it's when we get so busy and we put things in bins and drawers and we forget to go back and tend to them. They can absolutely dry on the fly, and that's not a good thing. So if you have any other tips, like what's something you're doing to maintain your pigments staying hydrated in the tube, share that with me. I would love to bend your ear and hear what's working for you.